Welcome to Geography 100, Critical Thinking About Digital Technology, the online version for spring 2024. A quick note that I am teaching this semester both an online and a face-to-face version of this course, so I'll do my best to make sure I don't get those two confused or send announcements for the face-to-face to the online or vice versa. But if I'm ever saying anything that indicates that we're supposed to meet in person or that there's something due not at our weekly due dates, but on a Tuesday or Thursday, which is when the face-to-face version meets, just let me know and I'll straighten it out. But I'll do my best to make sure that the two courses remain separate. I'm not confusing due dates or assignments or anything between the two courses. Oh yeah, so I'm just going to go over the syllabus briefly, discuss the schedule, the structure of the course, and get us started for week one. So, as I mentioned, yeah, I'm Dr. Nicholas Purdue. I am the instructor for the course. My email here. Email me anytime. Make sure that you put in Geography 100 into the subject line just so I can flag it and make sure that I address all student emails succinctly. I prefer that you email me directly to my email as opposed to using the internal Canvas messaging system. I find that to be harder to get notifications. They don't come to my phone as easily. It's hard to respond to them. So my preference is that you email me directly as opposed to emailing me within Canvas. Yeah. And I have office hours in person from Tuesday or on Tuesdays from 10 to 12. And I also have a lab office hours in Founders Hall 106 from 11 to 2. That's for my cartography geospatial courses that I teach. But I'm available both those times to answer questions in person or online. And if you want to set up a Zoom discussion, I can do so during those times as well. So just let me know. I'm pretty fast responding to emails, usually within a couple hours. And if I don't respond and you need a response more quickly than I have responded, just email me again. I won't be offended by a second email or reminder. You know, I get a lot of emails. Sometimes things get kind of lost in the shuffle from time to time. So if you send me a question or a request or you have an issue and I don't get back to you in what you feel is a timely manner, then shoot me another email and I'll get on top of it. So about the course meets. It doesn't meet. It's an online asynchronous course. So I will release the weekly assignments on the weekend before the week. So typically by Sunday night, I'll try to get them out a little bit sooner, but definitely by Sunday night, I'll have the weekly assignments released. That'll include the readings, videos or movies that we might be watching, podcasts that we might be listening to, all that material that you'll be responsible for comprehending. And then it will also include your assignments. Those assignments are going to be due by Sunday, the following Sunday at midnight. So you'll have a full week of your assignments availability. You know, I suggest you go through the reading and the viewing or the listening aspects of the course at the beginning. You know, let it marinate, let it sit for a couple days, think about what the assignment calls for, and then, you know, spend the time to do the assignment afterwards. Don't wait till the last minute to try to do everything. It's not heavy reading in terms of length of stuff or quantity of stuff, but it can be a little heavy in terms of topics and kind of the intellectual depth of the readings. I try not to assign too many academic articles. They're mostly more popular culture and more accessible articles, but it's still like kind of heavy stuff from time to time. And so sometimes, especially some of the sections we'll talk about, it can be helpful to kind of take a few minutes or a few days to kind of sit with it and think about it before kind of putting your response to paper or to Canvas discussion forum, as it were. Okay. So the course description from the catalog. This is a course that develops critical thinking skills and analytical reasoning through the investigation of various aspects of technology, including privacy, security, different forms of content, location-aware services, and emerging mobile and web-based technologies. This course fulfills the A3 general education requirement for Cal Poly Humboldt and for all California state colleges. So this course fulfills that requirement, and as such, courses that are counting towards GEs typically, without special permission, can't be taken pass-fail. They must be taken for a letter grade, and for GEs, for non-major courses, that letter grade has to be at least a D to get those general education requirement units to be covered in your DARS. Okay, before we get started too much, note that I want to make you aware of, and you may have seen this in other areas, or this might be entirely new. I'm not sure. But there is a possible work stoppage this semester where the California Faculty Association, which is the labor union of all the lecturers and professors and counselors and librarians across all of the California State University system, are in a contract dispute with management at this current time. And there is a call for a strike this term, January 22nd to 26th, if a settlement is not reached by then. In the event that there is a strike, then this course, I will not be responding to emails or checking my email or doing anything that's work related during that week. I've built in a contingency for that in the schedule, which I'll go over in a minute, but I want you to be aware of the likelihood or the possibility that there will be a labor strike at the university week 2 of the semester, which will be disruptive, to the overall flow of the semester. But as we go through the schedule, you'll see that there's some space in the semester for us to catch back up, so it won't be anything that will shorten or limit the course learning objectives or the materials that were to be covered. They're just going to be they could be rearranged slightly different, but I'll discuss that in just a second. This is a zero cost class. There's no textbook. I'll provide all of the materials that you need on Canvas. Okay, here we have the institutional learning objectives. I'm sure you've seen these in other courses. The one that this course most fits into is learning objective 3 and 4, right? Information literacy. We'll talk about information literacy in a digital context quite a bit in this course. And then critical thinking, as illustrated by the course name, right? We'll talk about and develop strategies to critically evaluate issues, ideas, and various aspects of, in this case, specifically about digital communication and digital technologies. A little bit more broadly, there's learning objectives for the Area A classification, right? And those are to identify the premise and conclusion of an argument, determine the validity of that argument. We'll discuss that quite a bit, in particular how it relates to kind of information flows and manipulation of data and things like that within digital formats. We'll discuss how to analyze, criticize, and advocate different ideas, distinguish matters of fact from matters of judgment, and we'll distinguish deductive and inductive argument forms and reasoning. So we'll cover all that, again, looking at that lens of digital technologies to do so. And then you can see here, this is a geography course, and I'm a geographer, so to me, I always, when I think about how technologies relate to geography, I'm always kind of thinking about ways that the instances of these technological artifacts are grounded in the real world or the material experiences that we have. And by that I mean, each time that we use technologies, that we engage with technologies, that shapes kind of the world around us in various ways. In some ways that can facilitate movement towards places, that can facilitate the lack of movement, or sequester movement in other ways, right? So when you think about how all sorts of things, like an example of just at a very basic level is that when you think about before email, there was a surplus of movement of letters and materials that were sent to and forth across the material world, right? In the form of the United States Postal Service, in the form of other mail carriers. And a lot of that mail, that flow of data, that flow that transcended the physical space, was eliminated by the emergent technology of email. Um, that's just kind of one example. We'll talk about a whole bunch of different examples as it relates to digital technologies. Um, yeah. So it's a good time, I guess, as well to kind of lay out that distinction between, what I mean when I'm talking about these different types of technologies. Um, so in this course, we talk really about emergent technologies, digital technologies, and spatial technologies. And so emergent technologies are really kind of these technological things that come along that change fundamentally our relationship with the task that that technology fulfills. Um, so we can think of the example of like an iPhone 11 to an iPhone 12 to an iPhone 13 or whatever. Those aren't necessarily, those aren't like emergent technologies. Those are updates on an existing technological thing, right, of a smartphone. There are different types of uh, smartphones, or there's different versions of a smartphone, and those new versions have different capabilities, or those new versions have different um, features, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it like fundamentally changes our relationship to the world around us, or it doesn't change the nature of our interactions with that device. Whereas the emergence of a smartphone as a differentiating piece of technology than a regular phone, or a dumb phone as they're called, was like an emergent shift, right? That changed our fundamental relationship to that device, and by extension, it changed our relationship to the world around us. So that's what I mean by emergent technologies. And that can be anything that ranges from digital devices, communication devices, medical devices, aeronautic and space devices or technologies. So in this course specifically, what we're discussing are digital technologies, and digital technologies are really defined by the technologies that store, collect, and transpond data specifically about the individual. So you can think about that as being computers or phones, or kind of wearable devices that track your movement or things like that. Those are all digital technologies because they collect data about the individual, they store that, and then they transmit that data to another place, whether that's a central server that performs tasks and responds, or whether that's a database that is then your personal information is collected and tabulated and potentially sold. So that's how digital technologies are defined, right? There's some sort of data-driven aspect to it that is collecting data about the individual. And then finally, I talk a lot about spatial technologies, which is a geographic concept that applies to technological information. And spatial technologies in many cases are extensions of digital technologies, whereas they collect data about the individual, store that data, transmit it, analyze it, etc. The difference with spatial technologies is they also have a spatial location, or a latitude, longitude, XY coordinate that's associated with that data. So not only is it important that the data about you exists, but where that data is collected, or the location you are when you're doing that task, is also important. So, a GPS device that's built into your phone that geotags tweets, or that geotags photos, or that has location-aware services built into it, and we'll talk all about this throughout the semester in various ways. Those are all examples of spatial digital technologies. So we'll discuss that as well as we go through the semester. Okay. So looking at our schedule, this is broken up on the left-hand column has the weeks, and then the topics, the materials that will be assigned for your reading, and then your specific assignment that will be due. So we can see the first week, right? We just have this course intro, little lecture I'm giving about the syllabus, and then we have our icebreaker activity. Week 2, I have this highlighted in purple because this is the potential week of the strike. And if this is the case, there is a strike this week, we'll just kind of bump everything back a week. You can see here in week 5 I have a catch-up week. So no strike, we'll work the first 4 weeks, and then we'll take week 5 to catch our breath. If there is a strike, right, we'll kind of do this course intro stuff in week 1. Week 2, there'll be I'll be on strike, and then we'll just kind of bump everything back down. And this catch-up week, we'll just collect this week forward, then we'll just kind of keep on going until spring break, until midterms. So that's the basic way that we're going to deal with the potentiality of the labor stoppage. We'll see what happens. I'll be in communication with you about what the intel looks like as we get closer. I don't want to say anything right now because I don't know exactly what will happen over the course of the next week. But I think by next week, and there'll be a pretty clear indication what's happening. Okay, so just to go over some of the topics that we'll discuss. Week 2, we're going to talk about just kind of technology as a form of life, technology as like this broader kind of entity that is a part of society, how it interacts with society, how it changes society, how society makes assumptions about technology, etc. We're going to read an article by a famous scholar within the world of science and technology studies, Langdon Winter. So that'll be an interesting article. And then I have what I'm calling mini presentations. I'll have more detail about this on Canvas next week, but it's basically a place where I'm going to have you kind of read the article, and there'll be a set of different prompts you can look at, and then from those prompts I'll have you use some different tools that are built into Canvas to create like mini micro lectures about the one of the prompts. You can choose one of the prompts and create a little micro lecture about it that you share with the class. So I'll have more detail about that next week. So then, yeah, we talk about technology kind of as a broader activity or a broader kind of thing in society. We'll talk about data graphics and visualizations, how data is used and manipulated kind of in visual formats within digital spaces. Then we'll talk about concepts of fake news and misinformation and how different technologies facilitate the flows of misinformation, which is especially pertinent now as there's various things going on that misinformation is being used as forms of propaganda, as forms of various things. So we'll discuss that. As I mentioned, we have a catch-up week here. Week 6, talk about social media and user-generated content and kind of issues of geotagging and how that relates to the environment. So there's a number of articles that I have. Again, you'll have the chance to like read one of the little kind of case study articles and then do a little mini presentation or a little mini micro lecture about that. And then I have a section on bearing witness in the digital age. This is a new topic for this. I've taught this course in the past, and this is a new topic that I'm introducing this semester that I think we'll discuss as we get closer, but just, how, give us some tools, give us some language, some insight in how to make sense of kind of like the influx or the massive amount of really challenging things that we witness online at various scales, whether that's in our local environment, nationally, within the world, from humanitarian to environmental to violence, all sorts of things that we kind of see within these digital spaces, and then how do we understand like how to sit with that, how to process that, how to make sense of seeing that as and kind of the various kind of challenges that come up with that. And then we'll have our midterm after that, and so that'll bring us through the first half of the semester. The midterm will be straightforward and designed to kind of reinforce what we've talked about throughout the semester, not designed to trip anybody up or make anybody nervous or anything like that. Okay. Then we move into, after spring break, we'll talk about digital geographies. So different ways that digital aspects are impacting kind of geographic functions and geographic patterns and organizations. We'll discuss AI for a couple weeks, um, some philosophical debates about AI, some issues, some potential social and environmental impacts of artificial intelligence, and then I got a movie for us to watch on, oh, when is that? Week 13. And then we'll talk about some uh, aspects of geoengineering and climate technologies, adaptive technologies, and then kind of these broader concepts of utopias and dystopias, kind of technological interpretations of utopian and dystopian um, worlds. So, which I think fits nicely with when we talk about artificial intelligence and geoengineering, kind of thinking about how that is being used. Those different technologies can kind of facilitate both utopian and dystopian ideas in ways that we don't quite have the capability of really imagining. But through some of these different things, I think we can begin to understand what that is a little bit better. And then last week we'll have a final project, and your final project will be due May 9th. I don't exactly know what we want to do for the final project yet. We're going to kind of see how the semester is going. It's going to be I know it'll be, a student driven. You'll have a lot of flexibility and opportunities to do something creative within that final project space, but I do not exactly know what that'll be quite yet. But we don't have to worry about that till after spring break. So future problem. Okay, so that's the schedule. It's pretty straightforward. It should, this is a 3-unit course, so you should expect about 9 hours of work per week between the in-class activities, the material that you have to read or view, and the completion of the assignment. I try to keep it balanced so that every week is about the same in terms of workflow and workload, where you don't really have heavy weeks or light weeks. I feel like in that capacity, it's easier to kind of stay on top of things if you have kind of like a nice kind of cadence and nice rhythm to the class, and it doesn't feel too up and down. So, like I said, it's online and asynchronous. That can be tricky sometimes for student, to stay on top of the work, but I'll try to send out, the material early, weekly reminders, reminders a couple days before the assignment's due, etc. So if we look at the assignments, we have attendance and participation assignments. We have our reading comprehension quizzes. There's various places where I'll assign readings. I'll have a little activity that's associated with that, whether that is a short answer thing or a kind of free writing thing or something. They'll be different each time. I'll drop the 2 lowest so you can see how I grade, see where you're doing in the class, and there's spaces where you can either drop one of the ones that you didn't do well on, or if you have done well, take a week off if need be later in the semester. So there's a little bit of flexibility built in case something happens post spring break and you get sick or have an emergency, or another course creeps up and kicks your ass for a week, that there's some flexibility built into this course to allow you to have a little bit of leeway in case something like that happens. Like I said, there's also the 3 mini presentations where you'll make a little video micro lecture based on the prompt provided. You won't need a webcam for this. You'll use a different platform that just kind of creates the lecture. And then there's discussion forums. These are places where you will answer a prompt and also respond to your the other students in the course. All right. Total amount of points for the course is 500. I'll be quick on grading. I try to be fast on grading, just so you have a good sense of what you're doing well, what you need to work on, and you don't, I hate it when you do a bunch of work and then you don't know if what you did in the past is good enough or meets expectations, right? And so you don't want to get in that situation where you're doing a bunch of stuff and then there's like 3 weeks of pending grades and you don't know how you're doing. So I try to be on top of the grading. If something happens with me where something gets complicated, I'm going to fall behind, I'll let you know that I'm going to fall behind, or I might do something where I'll give you give you the grade and then give you more substantial feedback later on if something's going on with my own schedule. Late and makeup policy, I generally, like I said, I try to keep like a steady cadence and a steady rhythm to the course so that it's easy to stay on top of things and you don't necessarily fall behind as much as other courses that have kind of like wild fluctuations on a week-to-week basis. That being said, if some of these things come up, if you start to fall behind, if you're starting to get kind of underwater with the course, definitely reach out. Let me know. I have resources to help you get back on track, to help address issues that might be preventing work from being done, whether that is technical issues or personal issues or whatever. So I think the best case is always to let me know how I can help you kind of succeed in the course. My goal for this course is to get everybody through this course with an A. That's like, if that happens, then I'm extremely happy because that means everybody like met and exceeded expectations. And I also understand that things come up and like the semester's a long form thing, and sometimes it's hard to have kind of that consistency throughout that 4 months of the semester, and a lot of things can happen in that 4 months. And so I try to, find places where we can be flexible, find places where we can be supportive, and make sure that, if you let me know what's going on, then I can help make sure to help you get back on track. So if it's a one-off thing, I usually try to forgive that, but if it becomes a pattern, then I'll try to reach out and get to the bottom of it. And then here's all the list of the different university syllabus policies, accommodations, IT issues, etc., etc., etc. If you have any questions about this, let me know. It should be pretty standard for all your other syllabi as well. And then a quick statement on my teaching philosophy. What I try to do in my courses are to be inclusive and to be supportive, to be kind of student-centered. Oftentimes, I feel like, if you try to have like a heavy-handed or a top-down approach or what's the word? Not disciplinary, but like really rigorous approach to the classroom space, whether that's be a material or a digital classroom in person or in Canvas. That it comes across as draconian or comes across as like heavy-handed, and that's not the way I want the course to be. I want it to be a place where you feel open to explore some of these different aspects of these digital technologies that intersect with our lives in so many ways, in so many confusing ways. There's a lot. It's, with all these different new emerging and digital and spatial technologies, there's new stuff that's happening all the time. There's stuff that I'm certainly not aware of, that you might be aware of. So the more that you can share with me about like the technologies you're using, how you perceive them, how you find them to be beneficial or dangerous, that helps me as well, because then I can incorporate that into my broader understanding, and collectively together we can kind of try to, pinpoint and place the human existence within this like myriad weird technological shift that we're in right now. So, in that vein, I encourage you to share with me things you think that are lacking in the course material, different resources that I might not include, critical feedback of the things I do include if you don't feel like they're relevant. Sometimes an article that I found relevant a couple years ago may not be relevant anymore. Some things are changing so fast, it's sometimes hard to even keep track of what's relevant in a certain way anymore. So, especially in a course like this. So, well, definitely I try to have a diverse set of diverse voices within the course materials that I use. So, definitely, if it's stuff that you want to include, want me to look at more, definitely let me know. As this is a digital space that we're communicating in Canvas, I'm very mindful of language that's being used in the discussion forums and in, our communal areas. So be mindful and be supportive of each other. Be inclusive in our posts and our responses to each other. If there's anything that kind of stands out as problematic, then I'll address that as it comes up it hasn't really been an issue in my teaching of these courses. Students are much more supportive and reliable or supportive and inclusive of each other than adults are, I think. So anyway, that's the basic syllabus and the structure of the course. If there's any questions about that, about what's covered in the syllabus, over the course of the next week, go ahead and review this or think about this. If there's anything that comes up, let me know. I just want to show you the Canvas site real quick as well. So on the Canvas site, I will have, each week I'll have these modules, and in the module I'll have the memo, right? And that's going to be kind of like the guidelines for the week, right? And then I will have the assignment. So I'll just go ahead and add an assignment here. Assignment. Do I know how to do this? I don't know. I'm doing this now. I'll cancel that. I'll do that in a second. But anyway, I have the welcome assignment here. You'll see it in the, when I publish this and make everything live, you'll see the week 1. It'll have the week 1 memo. It'll have your welcome assignment, which is kind of the icebreaker assignment about your digital and your analog hobbies and how they, what they say about you. And then it'll also have this video. So I'll have that all up within a couple hours here. And then for week 1, the only thing that's due is to view this video and to do this assignment here, which is just a quick discussion about, what are some things that you like to do kind of in the digital spaces? What are some things you like to do in more material space? How do those two interact with each other? And I made the first post here, which you can read. I think that's it. And then, by Sunday, I'll have week 2 right here. If you look at the syllabus, I'll have, you can download the PDF version here. Here's a link to the accessible Google Doc. And then I'll have the materials all hyperlinked in here too. So if you look at the syllabus, the schedule, it should be all in there. So there should be multiple places where you can access all the information, the readings, the quiz, etc., etc. And then final thing, course announcements. This is where I will place any information, events that might be of interest to you, emergency changes to schedule. I'll put information about the forthcoming potential strike here as well, due dates, extensions, all that stuff. So make sure that you check your announcements. I prefer that as like the best form of to kind of reach all of you at once. So, you're responsible for any information that's shared in the announcements as well. All right. Well, I am excited for the semester, and if there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I look forward to reading about your hobbies. Take care and have a good first week. Thanks.